Part 104. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1033. There are some things in life that Zhang Zizai would not waste his time on. He and Chu Zixi had no grudges, but they still robbed him of his place to worship ancestors. In the past 9 months, he must have been uncomfortable after going crazy at that banquet. In other words, he was not convinced at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have subconsciously wandered around the Tianlong shrine, and the bell didn't go too far. He just had no excuse to come into Tianlong shrine. This time, I suddenly met a child who was said to be Zhang Zizai. He happened to meet the inner demon, which made him always want to do something. Even if he was teasing Zhang Zizai, he would be able to express this. In fact, he knew that Zhang Zizai cared about this child very much, so he had a purpose. He pretended that he had done nothing to irritate Zhang Zizai a little. What if he couldn't control it and did something to him? If that's the case, then he has a chance to prove himself. What surprised him was that he was just trying his luck, but he didn't expect Zhang Zizai to be so manic and daring. As soon as he finished speaking, he actually came directly towards him. Looking at his posture, he was clearly planning to take action. Mean? What do you mean? Do you mean to beat me up? Zhang Zizai, are you a little distracted, are you arrogant? Chu Zixi squinted her eyes, and a sly smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. I just met a suspicious child and brought it here to you for verification. Just say it's your daughter. Why are you so vicious? Do you think I'm easy to bully? He continued. Still not letting go, Zhang Zizai asked one last time. Answer my question first, you are too presumptuous. Chu Zixi tried to provoke him. How could Zhang Zizai not know the little juju in his heart? In this case, he was no longer polite. At this moment, the top-level divine weapon, the heavenly sacrificial dragon divine halberd, appeared directly in his hand. In an instant, 300 sacrificial dragons were born and flew around his body. Everyone looked at Chu Zixi fiercely, and the next moment, they suddenly swarmed away. He took action directly. Too much. You humiliated me like this. Although Chu Zixi is not old, her acting skills are really good. Seeing that Zhang Zizai had already taken action, he fell into his trap. There was no point in having the bell in his hands, so he just threw the kid to the side. Wow! This was the first time that Lingdang was treated so roughly, and of course she cried again. Although she was not hurt much, what the child fears most is fear. At this point, Chu Zixi has already touched his inner skin. Zhang Zizai hasn't been so cold for a long time. Before the bell fell to the ground, a red light flashed, and he hugged her and lifted her down steadily. It turned out that Long Yan had already arrived. She was indeed fast. At this time, she hugged the bell and comforted her, and then the bell fell asleep. This girl is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Now that she is protected by Long Yan, she immediately turns around and says, "Daddy, beat this big bad guy to death." Although she was fine, Zhang Zizai couldn't stop. At the same time, Chu Zixi, who had been waiting for a long time, was already prepared. Facing Zhang Zizai's attack, he also directly entered the fighting state. She saw him suddenly open his mouth, and let out a deafening roar. The sound was shocking and pervasive, and could cause damage to the nearby bell. Fortunately, Long Yan was by her side, helping the bell block the sound. His purpose is obvious. He wants others to see that he is much better than Zhang Zizai. He should be more qualified to go to the Origin Dragon Cave. But his indiscriminate attack was even more shameless. Long Yan could only take the bell away and leave the battlefield. At this time, Lu Dingxing, Xuanhuan, and Zhang Yanning brought the bell together. Long Yan handed the bell to Zhang Yanning and asked her to go back first. "Aunt Yan, help my dad beat that bad guy." When Ling Dang left, he still refused to let go. Okay, when Long Yan returned, Zhang Zizai and Chu Zixi were already fighting together. Chu Zixi was very thoughtful. In order to let more people see it, he directly moved the battlefield to outside the Tianlong God King. In the streets, there are people coming and going, and if you see someone fighting, a lot of people will definitely gather. Shi, Lu Dingxing, and Suqinyu have not taken action for the time being. Chu Zixi is a being at the 7th level of the ancient god realm, and is the strongest opponent Zhang Zizai has encountered so far. However, they have a certain degree of confidence in Zhang Zizai, even though his level is inferior. At the 2nd level, the opponent's divine power must be more powerful, but Zhang Zizai is already a madman in the battle. Chu Zixi is only a teenager and is definitely the top talent of the Guangming Dragon clan. Zhang Zizai is a few years older, so it would not be fair to fight, but everyone knows that Chu Zixi's level is much higher than Zhang Zizai's. When the war started, it had already attracted crowds of people coming and going. Some gods also stopped directly and saw that it was two topical figures fighting. As unrelated people, they had no interest in stopping it. After all, to them, this is just a fight between babies. Chu Zixi is currently a god-level totem, called the Niluan Chinayan Tianlong Totem, right? He actually received the inheritance of the Holy Music God King, and was a god-level totem when he was born. He is very talented in rhythm attacks. This is different from his sister. With the true inheritance of the Holy Sound God King, his future achievements should be higher than those of his sister. He was definitely able to participate in ancestor worship, but it's a pity that there is no quota. It's no wonder that he is fighting Zhang Zizai here. But listening to their conversation, the meaning is that Zhang Zizai is arrogant and attacking Chu Zixi. Yes, I heard that too. Chu Zixi didn't want to fight and hid, but Zhang Zizai chased him relentlessly. He had no choice but to fight. After all, this kid has a bad temper. This Zhang Zizai is too arrogant. He is so arrogant. He did get the inheritance, but I heard that his realm is not high. He actually fought with Chu Zixi. Isn't it humiliating himself? I guess he relied on the heaven-sacrificed dragon god halberd. Chu Zixi's Xuanhuan Xiao is also a good totem weapon. The key is that he controls it better. Can Zhang Zizai wield the heaven-sacrificed dragon god halberd? They just arrived and talked a lot. Everyone said something. Zhang Zizai caught up with Chu Zixi and started fighting directly. Chu Zixi had a triumphant smile on his face. Sure enough, many people were watching. If he defeated Zhang Zizai by force, maybe the bright dragon lord would change his mind. At least he could vent his anger. He displayed the power of the totem. The totem power of the God Lord level anti-chaos divine sound was unleashed, and within the range that he could control, a sharp and piercing sound was heard for a moment. This sound was like a sharp knife stabbing at Zhang Zizai, and it was pervasive. Being in such a battlefield, one would always feel dizzy and have piercing ears. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1034. This sharp sound is like metal friction, so loud that it directly suppresses all other sounds. Almost lost hearing. This is when the demon lord cauldron automatically resists. In my world, your ears are the biggest weakness, unless you are deaf, Chu Zixi sneered. Zhang Zizai couldn't hear him speak, but could only see his mouth shape. It seems that he is still very confident in his ability. This kind of god-level totem power really has few opponents. At this moment, Chu Zixi took out a 3-foot-long white flute, held it in his hand, and began to play with a smile. When he started to play, the power of the reverse chaotic divine sound became more perverted. The original sharp sound now turned into a wave, and the power was directly strengthened, forming a kind of music, which was endless and tore Zhang Zizai from all directions. He does have some skills. However, he probably doesn't know that this attack can suppress Zhang Zizai, but not Zilong. Zilong can't hear these sounds. The 300 Zhilongs have already swam to his side in this instant. Zhilong shines. Zhang Zizai instantly arrives in front of him and appears in the blink of an eye. Chu Zixi was still feeling proud when he suddenly found that Zhang Zizai was so close. He took out the long Kunyuan Xiao and used it as a spear. The battle tactics he used were called Sound Soul Spear Technique. When the Sound Soul Spear Technique came out, countless Genki were shot out of Kunyuan Xiao. Each Genki formed a musical note, covering the sky and penetrating towards Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai had a blank expression on his face. At this moment, he exploded directly. Immortal War Will. Such a God King's will was enough to make his spirit swell at this time, ignoring the opponent's domain lethality, presenting his combat ability to the peak, and then causing a huge mental shock to the opponent. The god of battle, like a god descending from heaven, Chu Zixi bore the will of the ancient god for the first time, and for a moment his spirit was shaken, as if he was facing the God King. At this time, Zhang Zizai swept over with the Kangtian sacrifice dragon god halberd, and 300 sacrificial dragons were entangled on it. The halberd collided directly with his Kunyuan Xiao. He was confident in the power of the divine source. He knew that he was at a high level and could suppress Zhang Zizai, even if the other party had 300 sacrificial dragons. But he never expected that when Kunyuan Xiao was swept by the Kangtian sacrifice dragon god halberd, he was completely unable to move for a moment. This is the power of the infinite time-breaking blade, and the time was broken, making him lose all this time. And Zhang Zizai slashed with his backhand, and the Kangtian sacrifice dragon god halberd fell from the sky and chopped on his head. Chu Zixi resisted with Kunyuan Xiao in the flash of lightning, but this time it was not the infinite time-breaking blade, but the infinite sky-splitting slash. 300 dragon sacrifices, plus the infinite sky-splitting slash, and Zhang Zizai almost ignored his attack of the anti-chaos divine sound. Bang! With a crisp sound, Kunyuan Xiao broke directly and was split into two pieces by the side blade of the Kangtian dragon sacrifice divine halberd. The majestic space-tearing force suppressed it, and Chu Zixi was defeated. At the last moment, it was his clothes that blocked the aftermath of the Kangtian dragon sacrifice divine halberd. There were totem patterns on his clothes, which could be regarded as a totem divine weapon, but even so, the power of the 300 dragon sacrifices and the infinite sky-splitting slash still tore part of it and rushed into his body, wreaking havoc. Zhang Zizai, Chu Zixi was completely stunned. He was suppressed beyond understanding. He suddenly raised his head and instinctively felt fear. He thought Zhang Zizai would stop after suppressing Zhang Zizai, but he never expected that he would seal with one hand and attack again in the next moment. 5 Emperor's Dragon Seal. This time, it was the burning Skyfire Dragon Seal. With one hand forming a seal, there was a dragon in his hand. When he pressed down, a black fire dragon formed a mark, which directly destroyed everything. Zhang Zizai's holy dragon fire body had a huge effect at this time, and the power of the totem was also gathered in it. In an instant, it came down on his head. "You dare to touch me," Chu Zixi was shocked. In this lightning and fire, he was irresistible and used all means, but the burning Skyfire Dragon Seal still pressed down on his head, breaking through his defense and pressing directly on his chest. In an instant, Chu Zixi was engulfed by the black flames, his clothes were instantly blown to pieces, and the whole person was directly burned to charcoal. In his chest, a hideous fire dragon mark was printed on it. It was Zhang Zizai's palm print. Bang! Chu Zixi flew backwards and hit the wall. He climbed up and took 2 steps forward. He was charred all over and stared at Zhang Zizai. When he was about to curse, he fell to the ground again and could only twitch and cry out in pain. Zhang Zizai fell to the ground holding the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd, like a god of war descending, unscathed, and the disgusting rebellious divine sound finally ended at this time. Zhang Zizai, Chu Zixi raised his head, his face was burnt black, His body was severely injured, it was impossible for him to die, even such injuries would take some time to recover. His mind was completely confused, and he had long forgotten that his original purpose was to prove himself. Now he could only angrily scold, "How dare you hurt me so badly? You don't know the rules of our Bright Dragon clan. You have made a big mistake and will definitely be severely punished. Shut up, get out of here." Zhang Zizai taught him a lesson, and the anger in his heart was eliminated. He was too lazy to pay attention to him. Moreover, there were too many people watching at this time. There were hundreds of gods and ancient gods, and some familiar faces were also among them, such as Baiyu, Huazhongyuan, Huaxiantian, Guyeokan and others. For example, Guyeokan and Huazhongyuan, the two of them are now staring with eyes wide open, with expressions of disbelief in their eyes. They know best what Zhang Zizai's strength was at the beginning. It was difficult to defeat Guyeokan at that time, but now, he directly defeated Chu Zixi, who is at the 7th level of the ancient god realm. How could there be such a fierce improvement between heaven and earth? Perhaps Zhang Zizai at this moment has made them feel fearful. Even Hua Xiantian asked Hua Zhongyuan suspiciously, "Are you sure that Zhang Zizai could only defeat you by siege before? Even when I first saw him, he was not your opponent at all. Maybe, he hid his strength at that time." Hua Zhongyuan could only intoxicate himself like this, otherwise he would not dare to believe it. Now that they have seen Zhang Zizai's crushing battle, many people present are speechless. Zhang Zizai is still thinking about Lingling. After all, it is the first time to be a father, and sometimes he is still a little nervous. When he was about to leave, he suddenly felt threatened. He instantly used the dragon sacrifice flash to avoid a fatal attack. When he looked back, he saw a dignified and beautiful girl looking at him angrily, gritting her teeth and saying, "Zhang Zizai, you dare to hurt my brother like this. You will pay the price." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1035. The person who came was none other than Chu Ziyu. As soon as she arrived, she probably saw that Chu Zixi was so severely injured. Chu Zixi's condition looked too miserable. "Sister, he is so deceptive. I just met a child who claimed to be his daughter, so I took him in for questioning, but because of the naughty kid's joke, he actually hit me so hard." Chu Zixi got up, feeling aggrieved. "Cursed. Zhang Zizai's daughter. What do you mean? They already have a daughter. No matter what the reason is, it is indeed a bit too much to suppress Chu Zixi and beat him like this. As a sister, Chu Ziyu should vent his anger for his brother. At their age, Chu Ziyu is almost second in our Bright Dragon clan. She is much stronger than Chu Zixi. Indeed, when he first came to the Guangming Dragon clan, people like Chu Ziyu needed to look up to him. Zhang Zizai had just become an ancient god at that time. Of course, there is a 3-level gap between her and her now. After all, this person is also in the ranks of geniuses. If he is just an ancient god with god-level totems, he may not be her opponent at the 9th level. She has practiced for several more years than Chu Zixi, and her methods are naturally more advanced. Many. This is the highest level of the Bright Dragon clan. Zhang Zizai is already close. He dares to fight her, but his words are meaningless now because the chance of winning is very low. If he is traumatized, it may affect his cultivation in the next 3 months. And his goal in the next 3 months is to reach the 6th level of the ancient god realm. In that case, it would be slightly better to go to worship his ancestors. So Zhang Zizai was not prepared to compete with her, so he said, "It's embarrassing to say that you just want to stimulate me to do something to you, so that you can show your majesty and prove to others that you are better than me and more suitable for ancestor worship. Forget it, now that you are defeated, Why don't you make up words to gain sympathy? You are quite a coward even though you are young. When Chu Zixi was exposed like this, her whole body was dark and red, and she could only laugh angrily. Sister, you must avenge me. Zhang Zizai, you arrogant guy, shut up. Chu Ziu had long disliked him. If he and Zhang Zizai hadn't been on a united front emotionally, she would have been unable to stand him. In this situation, if she didn't take action, she would probably be gossiped about. After all, the entire young people of the Guangming Dragon clan still have a lot of resentment towards Zhang Zizai and the four of them who have taken up a lot of resources since their arrival. She took action directly, targeting Zhang Zizai. The power of her divine source was extremely majestic. When she took action, her divine power was indeed much higher than that of Chu Zixi. Despite her soft and charming appearance, the power of her limbs was actually very huge, and it's also very fast. I don't want to fight with you, Zhang Zizai said. Because it's really not cost-effective. You think too much. I want to beat you to avenge my brother, Chu Ziu sneered. She directly suppressed it. The strength of the 8th level of the ancient god realm directly suppressed Zhang Zizai to a certain extent. Her divine power was a bit higher than Zhang Zizai. After all, at the same age, she could rank second. It is true that pretty good. If I remember correctly, Chu Ziu's totem should be the blazing divine mirror heavenly dragon totem. Yes, she followed her mother. In fact, I think her totem is very unique and she poses a greater threat to the enemy. She has been at the 8th level of the ancient god realm for some time. She has experienced a lot of battles, and it is said that she has controlled the totem weapons of the God King level, and there are two kinds of them. Yes, it's Linglong Pagoda and Shan He Kalian. Just now Chu Zixi suffered a loss in weapons, and in terms of weapons, Chu Zixi, who has two complete god-level weapons, even has an advantage. You can tell just by looking at it, Zhang Xuanhuan has been crushed. Zhang Zizai found that he had underestimated her slightly. Now she was showing the power of her totem, the blazing mirror and the dragon totem. What was surprising was that her skin and flesh were like a mirror, which caused her entire body to look like a mirror. It's as if she has disappeared, it's hard to see where she is. But at a certain moment, the blazing mirror will burst out with super strong light. The light is a kind of sprint, just like the sword energy, it can directly penetrate the defense. She transforms between the radiant light and the invisibility, which is simply magical. It's unpredictable, if she's not careful, she might suppress and kill them all. As soon as she made a move, Zhang Zizai was suppressed, and even the 300 sacrificial dragons couldn't catch up with her. After all, she had too great an advantage in terms of divine origin. Facing such an enemy, Zhang Zizai could only support him, and he really had no power to fight back. After all, this is no joke. She is second only to Baimu in the entire Bright Dragon clan, and she is also the peak level of young people in the entire Supreme Dragon clan at this age. When Zhang Zizai first came, she could only represent the peak level of the Little God realm. Zhang Zizai was not an idiot. He was too lazy to show off in a meaningless battle. His brothers and sisters were all here at this time. He didn't need to say anything. Lu Dingxing and the others came directly to fight. They had practiced together a lot, and now they were fighting together. The ability is also very strong. Chu Ziu is indeed powerful, but they can join forces to attack. When Chu Ziu was still chasing Zhang Zizai, suddenly, a giant beast fell from the sky and hit her directly. She hid in an instant, but she suddenly found that the giant beast had countless black tentacles on its body, which directly entangled her. Was touched by that tentacle, and felt sore all over. The giant beast was clearly a half-human, half-panda, thick and huge. Get lost, Chu Ziu held a colorful pagoda in her hand. After the pagoda left her hand, it quickly grew larger and turned into a real giant tower. This was a weapon of the God King level. It directly suppressed Lu Dingxing's head and pressed Lu Dingxing to the ground. He could hardly move and could only struggle. She had just suppressed Lu Dingxing with the exquisite pagoda when a sword energy suddenly shot out from behind. This was Xuanhuan's sword energy across 30,000 miles. 30,000 miles was an exaggeration, but he was indeed very far away, but the Wang Chuan sword directly killed Chu Xiu in front of him. A weapon of the God King level, Chu Xiu frowned slightly, and the other totem magic weapon in her hand, Shan He Kalian, was unfolded. It was a colorful cloth belt with mountain and river paintings in it. When it was waved, it seemed like a mountain range and a river were controlled by it. The power was terrible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The colorful streamers of mountains and rivers directly entangled the sword energy of the Wang Chuan sword, but Xuanhuan once again controlled the sword and performed the one sword light chills 19 states. The sword force changed at this time, and the huge sword energy turned into countless, and the 10,000 swords returned to their origin, bursting and shooting. The threat of those sword energies also existed, and they were pervasive. Chu Xiu had no way to dodge. In anger, she could only entangle the Wang Chuan sword with the colorful streamers of mountains and rivers. After entanglement, she found that the Wang Chuan sword was very difficult to restrain, and she had to use a lot of effort to control the Wang Chuan sword. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1036. Ding. At this moment, something horrifying happened. A flash of blood mist appeared in front of her eyes, and her neck was numb. Chu Xiu dodged frantically, and finally avoided Long Yan's stab. She was sweating coldly, because she knew best what would happen if Zhu Tian blood pierced her body. When she looked back, the blood mist had disappeared, and she had no idea where Long Yan, who was hiding in the dark, was. She wanted to take back the Linglong Pagoda, but she found that this process did not seriously injure Lu Dingxing. This thing was like a monster that could not be killed, and the mountain and river-colored silk over there was entangled by the Wang Chuan sword. And Zhang Zizai was even more difficult. At some point, a space-time cage had been built. She hurriedly took back the mountain and river-colored silk and wrapped it around herself to block the terrible power of the space-time cage, but Zhang Zizai had already appeared in the space-time cage, and the 300 sacrificial dragons were under his control, biting the mountain and river-colored silk on her body frantically. And Zhang Zizai, with a thin expression, his hands moved as fast as a phantom. Burning Sky Fire Dragon Seal. This is the means to defeat Chu Zixi. The furious fire dragon attacked the colorful streamers of mountains and rivers, and Chu Xiu could only passively resist. You can't hit me. Chu Xiu took back the exquisite pagoda and suppressed Zhang Zizai, but the 300 sacrificial dragons around him automatically protected their master and directly resisted the suppression of the exquisite pagoda. Covering the sky with thunder and lightning. Covering the sky with one hand, thunder burst out, and black lightning condensed together and was printed on the colorful streamers of mountains and rivers again. Chu Xiu was about to tear apart this space-time cage. She knew that Zhang Zizai's totem was powerful. As long as she tore it apart, she still had a chance of winning. Puff. Just when her attention was all on Zhang Zizai, at that moment, her ears almost flew out, a flash of blood flashed, and she dodged it at the limit. Although it was a strand of hair that flew out, it made her feel a tingling sensation on her scalp. It was Long Yan's heaven-slaying bloodthorn again. She was indeed very fast. If it was only Long Yan, Chu Xiu could catch up and suppress her, but when Zhang Zizai and the others entangled her, Long Yan became very scary. She might not have enough divine power, but once she was hit by the heaven-slaying bloodthorn, she would be seriously injured. When it was even more uncomfortable, Zhang Zizai was like a mad demon. His immortal will of fighting against the sky burst out crazily at this time. He didn't care who his opponent was. After the heaven-covering Thunder Dragon seal, he immediately suppressed it again. This time it was the sky-bearing Azure Dragon seal. The power of the azure wood dragon pressed on the ground and rushed out directly from the ground. When Chu Xiu was still fighting against the attacks of Xuanhuan and Lu Dingxing, suddenly one of her legs was paralyzed. There was a blue dragon wrapped around it. The countless barbs on the blue dragon pierced directly into her big white leg, and blood flowed for a while. Ah, Chu Xiu was furious, her body was shining brightly, the blazing light of her totem power forced Zhang Zizai and the others to retreat, but this blazing light divine mirror could not always be in an explosive state. When her light disappeared, Zhang Zizai and the others surrounded her again. Chu Xiu had never encountered such a well-coordinated team. Each of them might not be as good as her, but when they cooperated, she could not use all her strength, and could only be beaten, or even unable to move. If she did not have many means to save her life, she would have knelt down now. None of these four people is easy to deal with. For example, Lu Dingxing, who seems to be clumsy and invincible, but is it that simple? His various magic skills are the most cunning, and even the soul control method of his left eye can make Chu Xiu fall into fear instantly. The world of ancient demons is very strange, but it can kill people at any time. For example, Xuanhuan, he seems to have done nothing, but the key is that the Wang Chuan sword is terrible. If you don't pay attention, your totem weapon may be torn by the Wang Chuan sword, so Chu Xiu can't ignore him. As for Long Yan, it makes her scared even more. She is now a hidden killer. Finally, there is Zhang Zizai. It is the most useless to fight with him. He can't be killed for a while, but he can't be ignored because he directly gathers the advantages of the other three people. He has the advantages of the other three people. Once ignored, it is more likely that she will be suppressed and defeated. Nothing is more aggrieved than now. She can only be angry, but she has nowhere to vent, because she is completely suppressed and can't find any way to counterattack. If this continues, she may even lose the battle in disgrace. Stop. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. After this person appeared, she could no longer avenge her brother. The person who came was Bai Mu. Zhang Ziyi didn't want to get entangled with her at all. It would be great if someone could organize them. The four of them stopped fighting and retreated to the door of Tianlong Palace. Bai Mu was standing next to her and saw that Chu Xiu was a little embarrassed. Her hair was a little messy and her face was pale. It was obvious that she was under a lot of pressure just now. At this time, the scene was actually a little silent. Even the gods were speechless. With the eyes of the gods, they can certainly see the potential and advantages of these four people. If they can make better use of their talents in the future, they will definitely be more difficult to deal with. With the identities of Bai Mu and Chu Xiu, how will he deal with this matter? Chu Xiu naturally couldn't suffer any loss. She hurriedly said, "They started it first, especially Zhang Zizai. He was the first to hurt my brother for no reason. I saw it with my own eyes." Bai Mu looked at Chu Zixi and said, "He is not dead. Besides, isn't it shameful to let him defeat him? What realm is he?" Chu Zixi. Chu Zixi was speechless. Dragon Lord has his reasons for not letting you go to worship the ancestors. If you refuse to give up, you will only lose face to the end, Bai Mu said. I know. Chu Zixi lowered her head and said with gritted teeth. Chu Xiu on the side was a little confused. She didn't expect Bai Mu to stand on Zhang Zizai's side like this. He must help her anyway. We are all family. Don't make a fuss over a little thing. Let's go. If you have energy, perform well during the ancestor worship, Bai Mu said. He has a special status, and some gods still have to listen to what he says. Zhang Zizai. Bai Mu looked over and said, I know you have made great progress, but when you come to the Bright Dragon clan, you still have to abide by some rules. If you are sparring, just stop at a certain point. Don't go too far, understand? His words are fair. Zhang Zizai nodded. He had already beaten the man, so admitting his mistake was just a small matter. So he said, "Well, I understand. I will pay attention next time." "I heard you have a daughter," Bai Mu asked curiously. He knew that this was the cause of the incident. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1037. At this point, it was impossible to hide it, so he nodded and said, "Not very old, still young." In fact, he didn't listen carefully, because Bai Mu asked about you all, not you. "Congratulations. If you had said it earlier, Longzun would be very happy," Bai Mu said. "The child is still young, it's not convenient for her to receive too much attention, just let her grow up slowly," Zhang Zizai said. "That makes sense," Bai Mu nodded. "I still have to continue to prepare for the ancestor worship, so I'll take my leave first." "Goodbye." Zhang Zizai saw him off. When Bai Mu left, he gave Chu Ziu a look, and Chu Ziu pursed her lips and left behind him. As for Chu Zixi, he naturally limped and left in a depressed mood. He did resent it, but he was indeed very embarrassed today. He knew that he had become a stepping stone for Zhang Zizai to become famous. Now everyone around him is discussing Zhang Zizai's progress, and they now have a new understanding of Zhang Zizai's strength in them. In fact, they are not only talented, but also have good fighting power. It is said that they had just become ancient gods 2 years ago when they came to the sacrifice dragon divine realm. Now Zhang Zizai can defeat Chu Zixi, which means that he has made great progress in a place like the sacrifice dragon divine realm. This is due to the change to a better environment. Although it may slow down after a period of time, such progress is already amazing. It turns out that Longzun's vision is really good. It is not unreasonable that he can replace Chu Zixi. These 4 people, it really soared to the sky, especially after the ancestor worship. The 2 will get married, and they should be more famous by then. It's enviable, people from the small divine domain have such a scene. Bai Mu's wedding was probably not so grand, and the Guangming Dragon Lord personally granted the marriage, which is really of great significance. I didn't expect that these 2 children have already given birth to children, but I don't know if they are of the supreme divine dragon bloodline. Even if they are, they may not show it immediately. Let's see later. These discussions made Chu Zixi bow his head completely and dare not see anyone. This storm seemed to dissipate quietly, and it was only circulated among the gods. The gods didn't seem to care much, but in fact they also had a new understanding of the fighting power of Zhang Zizai and others. In fact, some gods had seen their battle, but they just didn't show up. After Zhang Zizai returned, he found that Lingdang was still alive and kicking, so he felt relieved. He was indeed a little too nervous just now. In fact, Lingdang was not easy to be bullied. It was just that there was no such precedent before, so he was indeed a little rough. "Don't run around in the future, especially after Daddy goes out," Zhang Zizai said seriously. "Got it? If you run around again, I will lock you up in the evolution realm," Zhang Zizai said. "No, Daddy, Lingdang knows she was wrong." She was crying with grievance, and Zhang Zizai couldn't teach her anymore. The ancestor worship was about to begin, and his main focus in the next 3 months was still on cultivation. Finally, before that day came, he successfully reached the 6th level of the ancient god realm. And the 3 of them were still at the 5th level, so they couldn't make progress so quickly. After all, the further you go, the more difficult it will be. In the past 2 years, Bai Mu has not yet broken through to the godly lord realm. On this day, the heavenly dragon god king appeared directly. He looked at Zhang Zizai's progress, nodded with great satisfaction, and then took the 4 of them to set off together to the Fengyuan altar where they gathered last time. At 7 o'clock today, the Light Dragon clan will set off together to the Origin Dragon Cave to worship their ancestors. The heavenly dragon god king directly transformed into a divine dragon, and with a roll, they flew into the clouds and mist, and arrived at the Fengyuan altar in a flash. During these times, Zhang Zizai occasionally transformed into a totem beast to feel his divine dragon body, but it was still useless at present. If you want to use it in battle, it is not so easy to change it at ordinary times. Today, only those who have a quota can come to the Fenyuan altar. When Zhang Zizai and them arrived, there were not many people, and the sky was not yet completely bright. Then the God King and the God King arrived. Generally speaking, there are still more God Kings. God Kings and ancient gods can only be regarded as geniuses, and they follow these strong men to see the world. Not long after, the God King of Light and Glory brought Bai Mu and Chu Xiu over. 3 months later, Chu Xiu was calm now, as if she had forgotten what happened at that time. People greeted each other, but after all, they were going to worship their ancestors, so they didn't dare to be too noisy. This was a serious occasion. The Lord of Light and Glory would definitely appear today. As the core of the Light Dragon clan, he would lead the worship of the ancestors. Before the time of Chen arrived, the people on the list had all arrived. Zhang Zizai was still quite eye-catching when he was with the 4 of them. Someone talked to the God King of Heaven and Dragon about Zhang Zizai's progress, and they were all smiling. It seemed that they were very satisfied with Zhang Zizai's progress. By the way, God King of Light and Glory, how are the preparations for the wedding of these 2 children going? Asked a God King. The invitations have been prepared, and the details have been roughly finalized. They will be sent out directly after the ancestor worship. The wedding date is set for the Holy Dragon Lantern Festival 3 months after the ancestor worship. Dragon Lord has also agreed. Let me make it grand, the King of Light said. He also regarded this as a notification to Zhang Zizai and the others. He didn't say it before, and he planned to say it now. It's not a big deal to talk about it now. After all, for such a grand wedding, the 2 parties involved are not very important. After all, they are juniors. Congratulations, Heavenly Dragon God King. Many people began to congratulate Heavenly Dragon God King. After all, he raised both of them. Heavenly Dragon God King smiled. He didn't really care about this matter. It's still more important to worship the ancestors. After worshipping the ancestors, let's talk about this matter. After all, worshipping the ancestors is more serious, he said. That's right, other gods said. The 2 children are in love with each other. It is said that they both have children. I guess they can't wait. Yes, Zhang Zizai is a little rascal at that time. He said that he wanted to get married after becoming a god. Now that he has a child, he still wants to be irresponsible. Haha, I guess he wants to pay more debts. Young man, I advise you to take it easy. Women are annoying enough. If you mess, you will have a headache in the future. The elders laughed. Until the moment when the Lord of Light Dragon descended, they immediately looked stern and extremely serious, as if they were not the ones joking before. Are you all here? Let's go directly this time. The Lord of Light Dragon was extremely solemn. Everyone knew that the Dragon Cave ancestor worship was the most solemn event. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1038. Last time, he had seen the scene of the God Kings turning into totem beasts and flying. That was a grand spectacle of a group of dragons flying into the sky. So this time, although there were more flying dragons and they were more real, he was not as shocked as that time. But in general, the dragons that could only be seen in the Sea of Life were now all flying in front of him. The dragon heads, dragon teeth, dragon mouths, and dragon whiskers were all clearly visible, vivid, and different from each other. There was still a slight feeling of living in a dream. Is this the kingdom of real dragons? The most powerful group of people of the Light Dragon clan are now here. Remember the domain name of this site, Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. He didn't know where the Light Dragon Lord was. At this time, the god kings had rolled up the god lords and ancient gods they brought with them, and the sky was full of sky. The group of dragons shuttled through the clouds and mist between heaven and earth, and the scene was very spectacular. Zhang Zizai and the other three people were on the body of the heavenly dragon god king. The dragon transformed by the heavenly dragon god king looked more pure. In fact, from the perspective of beauty, it should be considered the first, because his dragon scales were shining and colorful. From some angles, he suddenly looked like a colorful dragon. On the body of the heavenly dragon god king, he felt the power of the holy dragon, which meant that the heavenly dragon god king could control many attributes. If it could exceed 6, it would be considered a holy dragon. He still had doubts about this guy whose name was the same as his brother, but as time went by, he felt that this doubt should dissipate a lot, mainly because the heavenly dragon god king himself was watertight, unless he was really willing to go back to the well of the divine domain outside the origin continent with him. Last time he said that maybe there would be time after the ancestor worship. Zhang Zizai wanted to see what he would say then. Now that the Lord of Light Dragon is here, it seems that the God Kings are all concentrating on their journey and don't talk much with each other. God of Heavenly Dragon, at this moment, Zhang Zizai suddenly heard the authoritative voice. He saw that the Lord of Light Dragon was standing on the dragon head of the God of Heavenly Dragon. His eyes were calm, but there was a smile on the corner of his mouth. He just looked at Zhang Zizai and the others. After all, it was a smile, so Zhang Zizai didn't feel any pressure. Lord of Dragon, the God of Heavenly Dragon, called him as a salute. The Lord of Light Dragon was still in human form, no wonder Zhang Zizai couldn't see his totem beast body. It is said that after becoming a god lord or a heavenly god, one can have the most perfect totem beast body. It is said that at that time, one will truly become a totem beast, but in human form, which has become a state of change. Lord of Light Dragon must have the most perfect totem dragon body now. The God Kings can also seem to change and even use it for battle, but in fact, it is completely different from the heavenly god in essence. Meet Lord of Dragon, Zhang Zizai said to the four of them. I heard that you defeated Chu Zixi some time ago. Guangming Dragon Lord looked at Zhang Zizai. Although he didn't know what he meant, it was obvious, so Zhang Zizai could only nod and say, yes. I heard that you also joined forces to restrict Chu Ziu, Guangming Dragon Lord asked again. Zhang Zizai nodded again. He smiled and said, such progress is faster than I thought. Not bad. Especially you, Zhang Zizai, are slightly better than I thought. Thank you, Dragon Lord, for your compliments, Zhang Zizai said hurriedly. Facing such a monster-level ancestor, it is better to be honest. When complimenting, it is better to be low-key. After all, everyone's eyes are actually on Guangming Dragon Lord now. When Guangming Dragon Lord talks about himself, they are naturally paying attention to himself. It seems that after 3 or 4 months, there has been some progress, right? Guangming Dragon Lord looked at him and asked with a smile. His eyes are really sharp. The breakthrough in his realm really can't be hidden from his eyes. So Zhang Zizai nodded and said, there is indeed a small improvement. Everyone present basically knew about Zhang Zizai's victory over Chu Zixi. Guangming Dragon City is big, but the circle is small. Now Guangming Dragon Lord actually pays extra attention to the progress of a junior, which shows that he really values Zhang Zizai enough. He put his name in front of Bai Mu, who has a God King totem, on the list, which explains everything. So some people also pay attention to Bai Mu. Now Bai Mu is on the back of Guanzhou God King, and Chu Ziu is standing next to him. The 6 young people are the few ancient gods here, and they are all equivalent to the generation of infants, so they are still quite eye-catching. For example, when Guangming Dragon Lord talked about Zhang Zizai's victory over Chu Zixi, her expression was a little cold, she just didn't show her displeasure. She never expected that the next moment, the bright Dragon Lord actually saw her and said, Chu Ziu, come over here. Dragon Lord, me, she didn't understand why she was involved, but she still jumped over the totem beast and quickly moved to the side of the Dragon God King. Although she was unhappy with Zhang Zizai, she was a little timid in front of the Dragon Lord. Everyone was also very curious, what did the bright Dragon Lord ask Chu Xiu to come over for? The next moment, the answer was revealed. He asked Zhang Zizai, so 3 months later today, do you think you can fight her? At the beginning, it took 4 of them to barely force Chu Xiu to retreat, which was enough to show how powerful and talented she was. She had a very high status in the Light Dragon clan and was being trained as a future God King, and she was also a top God King. Zhang Zizai thought about it and probably knew what the Light Dragon Lord wanted to see, so he went with the flow and said, I can't say I'm sure, but there shouldn't be a need for 4 people to besiege Miss Chu together. He said it tactfully, but people could still hear his confidence. Chu Xiu smiled and said nothing. She didn't expect that the God Kings were still flying towards the Origin Dragon Cave, and the Light Dragon Lord actually said, since we don't know the answer, let's have a discussion. The Light Dragon Lord actually wanted them to fight. Here, Zhang Zizai didn't expect it at all. It would be fine if it was before departure, but now they were all on the back of the Sky Dragon God King. This was not a suitable place for fighting at all. Moreover, the Sky Dragon God King was very fast, and there was a storm on it. Normally, it was not stable to stand. If they wanted to fight, it would be more difficult. Of course, if they really want to fight, then it is not impossible. Yes, the Bright Dragon Lord's words were concise, but they were absolutely full of authority that could not be refused. After hearing the word yes, Chu Xiu's face was serious. She nodded first and said, Dragon Lord, I have no problem at all. I'm just afraid that Zhang Zizai doesn't dare to do it. After all, he is used to fighting with more people, and I'm afraid he won't be able to adapt for a while. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1039. Haha, Guangming Dragon Lord smiled. In fact, as soon as he said the sentence, the smell of sex was already coming out. The God King and the God Lords were watching the show while they were on their way, and they were enjoying themselves. I have seen the previous battle. In fact, Zhang Zizai still has the advantage of the siege. If he fights alone and no one restrains Chu Xiu, he is actually a bit far behind Chu Xiu. Normally, it would be impossible to bridge this gap in 3 months. There was a conversation between 2 God Kings, which attracted the attention of many God Kings. Fighting against the Heavenly Dragon God King was indeed very difficult, so Lu Dingxing and the others withdrew from the battlefield, leaving Zhang Zizai and Chu Xiu alone here. Facing Chu Xiu's contemptuous and sarcastic eyes, Zhang Zizai couldn't help but laugh. Although the battle came suddenly, he was still prepared and said, since Miss Chu is so confident, she must take it easy. After all, you have to go to worship your ancestors, but don't injure me seriously. It won't be very convenient for you to move like your brother. His words seemed to be a sign of cowardice, but in fact there was a hidden truth behind it. Speaking of Chu Zixi, Chu Xiu's eyes immediately shot out with a cold air, and murderous intent pervaded his body. Her flesh and blood skin began to turn into a mirror. It was a blazing mirror that could occasionally hide the world. Occasionally it could erupt with very dazzling light, penetrate the shield, and attack directly. In her hands, 2 god-level totem weapons appeared at the same time. One was suspended in her left hand, and the other was wrapped around her right hand. She had an exquisite pagoda in one hand and a mountain and river colorful training in the other. Such a momentum was truly amazing. Many God Kings present asked themselves, at this age, it is impossible for him to be as powerful as Chu Xiu. The 8th level of the ancient God realm is already close to the realm of a God King. Even some God Kings with very poor qualifications may find it difficult to suppress her. Such is the case with the proud daughter of heaven. In the Qingchuan little God realm, such existence cannot be found at all. Under her strong oppression, the God King seemed to have expected it. They were quite familiar with Chu Xiu, and the methods she showed were all in their plans. It is obviously very difficult for one person to hold on to the blazing divine mirror Tianlong Totem, the Linglong Pagoda and the mountains and rivers color training, especially since Zhang Xiu seems to be not as strong as her in terms of divine source. In this way, if she wants to suppress it, it's more convenient. Chu Xiu had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Now that the Dragon Lord of Light gave her this opportunity, she couldn't bear it for a moment, so she directly suppressed Xiang Zhangzaize. She first used the power of the totem to hide herself, and her body became a mirror. The mirror made her almost blend into the surroundings, and with the changes in light, it was actually quite difficult to find his position. Almost in the blink of an eye, the exquisite pagoda suppressed Zhangzaize's head. The huge pressure was like a mountain range, suppressing it with a crash. Such lethality was enough to crush a totem world into pieces. But Zhangzaize remained unmoved at this time. He seemed to be suppressed, but in fact, he had just started to take action. After reaching the 6th level of the ancient god realm, in fact, the terrifying power of his destructive divine source was no longer comparable to the divine source. What a disadvantage, especially since his divine body is still the 3rd level of the holy dragon celestial body. The sky dragon sacrifice divine halberd was suddenly in hand, and 300 sacrifice dragons rushed out, barely requiring Zhangzaize's control. The 300 sacrifice dragons flew into the sky, fiercely blocking the exquisite pagoda. When Zhangzaize's realm broke through, the 300 sacrifice dragons flew into the sky. The power of the 100 sacrificial dragons has also become much stronger. What people saw this time is that when the exquisite pagoda suppressed it, more than 100 sacrificial dragons alone directly supported the suppression, leaving Zhangzaize unscathed. Such Zhangzaize has exceeded Chu Xiu's expectations. She frowned slightly, violently controlling the Linglong Pagoda, and suppressing it with double the power of the ancient god. However, the dragon sacrifice was acting like crazy and was completely blocked by Zhangzaize. It was impossible for Zhangzaize to stay in one place. He needed dragon sacrifice to block him a little, but with the dragon sacrifice shine, he had already appeared in front of Chu Xiu. Roll. Chu Xiu can only be swept away by mountains and rivers. Zhangzaize didn't say anything, but the battle halberd struck that day. At the moment when the heavenly dragon sacrificial halberd was dancing, the sacrificial dragon was galloping wildly, causing huge trouble to Chu Xiu almost any time and anywhere. In an instant, the Shan He Kalian and the Kangtian dragon sacrifice divine halberd were entangled together. Chu Xiu, the divine weapon, is actually the nemesis of any weapon, because it has a very difficult binding power. Once entangled, she can take away any weapon. Human weapons. But when Shan He Kalian was wrapped around a heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd, she was completely unable to move for an instant. That was because she had forgotten that this heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd carried the power of the infinite time-breaking blade. At the moment when time breaks, Shan He Cai Lian cannot even move. At the same time, Zhangzaize's left hand directly used the 5 Emperors Dragon Seal, suppressing it directly. The burning sky fire dragon seal erupted, and a fire dragon was hooded. Chu Xiu frowned. She had just tried to seize Zhangzaize's weapon but failed. In desperation, she could only take back Shan He Kalian to resist the 5 Emperors Dragon Seal. But she didn't expect that Zhangzaize's right hand waved directly and rotated a few times, but it entangled Shan He Kalian, and the remaining sacrificial dragons directly bit the extremely strong Shan He Kalian, allowing her to, can't take it back. In fact, Zhangzaize couldn't do such an operation last time. That was because the ancient divine power at that time was not enough to support Shan He Kalian. But now, Chu Xiu, who cannot take back Shan He Kalian, can only take it back quickly. Linglong Pagoda, but brought back all the more than 100 sacrificial dragons. Those sacrificial dragons were still entangled in the Linglong pagoda, so she could only bear Zhang Zizai's sky-burning fire dragon seal in a hurry. Bang! A move of fire dragon mark broke through her defense and hit her arm. Suddenly the outer layer of her arm was scorched black with a flame dragon printed on it. She screamed in pain and tried to pull Shan He Cai Lian away, but Zhang Zizai continued to spin and once again entangled her Shan He Cai Lian with the dragon's sacrifice halberd. He formed a seal with his left hand again and attacked crazily. He did not give Chu Xiu a chance to breathe at all. Opportunity, followed by a move of the sky-covering thunder dragon seal that shook open her exquisite pagoda, and then a move of the sky Ching Ching long seal hit her other arm. Get out, her body erupted with penetrating bright light. This was also the power of the blazing divine mirror Tianlong Totem. It did pose some threat to Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai could only dodge it with the dragon's sacrifice shine moment. When Chu Xiu's light burst out, he attacked again. This time, he held the heaven sacrifice dragon divine halberd in both hands, accompanied by 300 sacrificial dragons, and violently killed them. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1040. Infinite Air Splitting. The space was torn in the direction of the halberd, and Chu Xiu was suppressed very fiercely. She could only be beaten again, because now both arms were hit by the dragon seal of the five emperors, causing her to be completely unable to use the two magic weapons this time. Let Zhang Zizai split it open directly. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Immortal Fighting Will. At this moment, Zhang Zizai revealed his hidden methods. The will of the God King can suppress the opponent's state of mind at critical moments. When she sees herself coming like a God King, her inner collapse will directly reflected in front of our eyes. Break. 300 sacrificial dragons swept past, and the heaven sacrifice dragon divine halberd struck down with great momentum. It did not stop until it reached the top of Chu Xiu's head. If it had not stopped, it would have been enough to kill Chu Xiu in half. I accept. Zhang Zizai put away his weapons and returned to the dragon's sacrifice. He took a few steps back and looked at Chu Xiu with a half smile but not a smile. The other party was still standing there, completely unresponsive. It was just the crisis of death that had just occurred. She was covered in cold sweat. Defeated. The other party did not besiege him, nor did he use any disgusting methods. It was purely a suppression. The ability that made him very confident was not displayed at all. From the beginning to the end, he was under Zhang Zizai's control. There was no suspense about this defeat. She raised her head sluggishly and looked at the young man. Suddenly, she felt powerless in her heart. From the beginning of the tomb of the bright dragon, he had continued to surpass him, and now he has surpassed herself. This is really a monster. So one day, will he even surpass Bai Mu? Chu Xiu was disheartened. She felt more frustrated than ever before. She shivered several times and didn't know where to go or what to say. She could only look around blankly. The God Kings saw the whole process very clearly. With their level, they could see even the details thoroughly. They knew exactly how Zhang Zizai defeated Chu Xiu. Even so, the eyes they looked at Zhang Zizai were still slightly shocked. They looked at each other, and then they all gave a wry smile. I probably know why Longzun asked them to do it before worshipping the ancestors. Maybe even he is a little curious about this Zhang Zizai. I still didn't expect it. Longzun must have known that Zhang Zizai might win before the battle. In this way, in the same age group, he is second only to Bai Mu in terms of strength. Who said that his realm is low? With such combat power, if his realm is still low, it can only be said to be more terrifying, right? I know how the heavenly dragon god king cultivated this young man. He doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. While everyone was still stunned, Guangming Dragon Lord said, Zhang Zizai also has the potential of a god, but you didn't see him overcome the tribulation. Everyone suddenly realized that no wonder Longzun valued him so much. It turned out that he had the potential to be a god. In this way, he and Longyan both have the potential to be gods, and they are simply a match made in heaven. After this battle, Zhang Ziu's status as the Bright Dragon Lord became even more different. Especially when he and Longyan are bound together, it is a very promising future for the Bright Dragon clan. Let's see how he behaves when he worships his ancestors. The strength of other heavenly clans is actually very strong. I was originally worried that they were talented but not strong enough in combat. Now it seems that they are actually capable of fighting. Baimu can share a lot of pressure. I just don't know, when will Zhang Zizai be able to compare with Baimu? He doesn't have the God King Totem, which means he is one level behind. He probably still needs to improve. This is true. Baimu, who was trained by King Guanzhou since childhood, at least for a long time, still has the face of their age. While the God Kings were discussing, King Guanzhou took Chu Ziu back with his head lowered and said, "Don't be too depressed. He missed a lot in the small god realm. He will definitely make up for it when he comes here, so he has made rapid progress in a period of time." Normal. Yes, Chu Ziu nodded, but her mood still couldn't calm down for a long time. She longed for Baimu to comfort her, but Baimu also lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking. "Aren't you going to avenge me?" "He's already so proud," Chu Ziu said sadly. "Oh," Baimu said coldly, but did not continue. Instead, he looked in the direction of the Origin Dragon Cave and said, "You'd better focus on the 1,000-year phenomenon. If this time, he has progress, if you don't make progress, you will only be pulled further. The same goes for you." Chu Ziu couldn't control his mouth. Saying this might relieve his anger. "What did you say?" Baimu stared at her, his eyes completely cold. "Sorry, I was wrong." Chu Ziu realized that he said something he shouldn't have said and apologized quickly. "You also think that I'm not as good as him?" Baimu suddenly smiled. "I definitely didn't mean that. I believe in you the most," Chu Ziu said quickly. Such Baimu made her feel scared. Fortunately, Baimu didn't say any more. He sat cross-legged on his father's dragon scales and began to practice quietly. His concentration and seriousness soon won praises from many god kings. On the side of the heavenly dragon god king, the bright dragon lord disappeared after watching the battle, and the team was still moving forward. This was just an interlude in the middle. Zhang Zizai didn't think much about it, so he sat down and sorted out the battle just now. Harvest. After 2 years in the Sacrifice Dragon Divine Domain, he has advanced to the 6th level of the Ancient God Realm. This is a terrifying speed, but he is still not satisfied. He feels that such strength is insignificant to the Sacrifice Dragon Divine Domain. He needs a long time to grow up. Fortunately, he came to this biggest stage when he was young, otherwise, he would definitely waste more time. He looked ahead of this journey and suddenly felt that there was something attractive in front of him. It seemed to be the attraction of fate. His blood was boiling because of it, and even invisibly, he felt tears welling up in his eyes. Maybe, that is the origin of the dragon cave, the origin of the dragon. He looked at others and found that their conditions were normal. Is it only himself who has this feeling of going home? Now the distance is still far. But the distance is shrinking. He asked Long Yan, but she didn't react anyway. As for Lu Dingxing and Xuanhuan, it is even more unlikely that there will be any reaction. Zhang Zizai is a little curious about what the Origin Dragon Cave looks like. Finally, the Flying Dragon team crossed countless mountains and forests and finally reached their destination. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1041. There is a black wilderness in front of you. In the wilderness, Not a single blade of grass grows. The world in front of you is very chaotic. It can be seen that there is a big mouth in front of you, sucking everything around there. So even the ground is flat. After arriving at a certain location in this wilderness, the God Kings did not continue to move forward, because it was obvious that if they continued to move forward, they might be swallowed by something in the distance. It can be seen that if the birds in the sky accidentally broke into this, if it falls within the range, it will be swallowed up and disappear immediately, reaching a distant place. What is sucking up such a large area of space? Zhang Zizai asked the heavenly dragon God King. Of course it originated from the dragon cave, said the heavenly dragon God King. What do you mean? Don't we go over to worship our ancestors? Zhang Zizai asked. The origin dragon cave is a bottomless pit. Normally, this bottomless pit has a terrifying suction force. The closer you get, the greater the suction force. Especially for living creatures, this kind of suction force is the most terrifying. As long as you step into this range, you will basically be sucked in. Once you enter the bottomless pit, you will never be able to come out again. No one knows where you will go. It was once said that the oldest dragon ancestor came out of this bottomless pit, said the heavenly dragon God King. I didn't expect it to be such a terrifying place. It felt like a big mouth swallowing life. As long as you got close, all flesh and blood would be gone in an instant. But why the dragon ancestor was born here is unknown. Anyway, they are descended from such ancestors. Then we can't get close at all, Zhang Zizai said. The heavenly dragon God King smiled and said, the origin dragon cave will shrink once every 100 years. Within a period of time, we can get close to the bottomless pit. There will be a violent contraction once every 1,000 years. There will be no suction outside the entire bottomless pit. This way we can get closest to the origin ancestor. Worship is being held in the dragon cave. You can see the 1,000-year elephant more clearly. In fact, you can see the 1,000-year elephant during the Centennial Festival, but it is too far away, so you can't see it clearly. I see, but if the origin dragon cave suddenly regains its suction power during the ancestor worship, wouldn't it mean that everyone will die? Xuanhuan asked curiously. It's impossible. Nothing like this has ever happened in history. Besides, this is the blessed place of our Shenlong clan and the place where we were born. How could such a place possibly exterminate us? The heavenly dragon God King said with a smile. Since it has never appeared in history, it must not exist anymore. Zhang Zizai didn't worry about this. After they came here, they could clearly find that every time a day passed, the swallowing range of the bottomless pit would shrink a little, and they could move forward a little bit. They arrived relatively early, so the other holy dragon celestial clan had not arrived yet. Zhang Zizai could vaguely see that at the far end, there seemed to be a big black mouth on the ground. It looked very scary. He really didn't expect that the Shenlong clan originated from such a place. Of course, there are 5 such origin dragon caves in the entire dragon sacrifice divine realm, and this one belongs to the holy dragon celestial clan. About 3 days later, the second team of the holy dragon celestial clan finally arrived. It was the Xuanhuan dragon clan. Among the Xuanhuan dragon clan, most were from the Xuanhuan dragon clan. Their combat power was slightly weaker, but their vitality was very tenacious and they could control the trees of the world. It can be clearly seen that both men and women are slender and particularly fresh. Zhang Zizai has been here for so long and finally saw other dragons. You know, the light dragons are basically all shining. After watching too much, you will feel some aesthetic fatigue and feel that everyone is too shiny and dazzling. The Xuanhuan dragon clan are all relatively amiable. Zhang Zizai saw the Xuanhuan dragon lord on the other side. He was the ancestor of this generation of the Xuanhuan dragon clan. He was completely different from the Guangming dragon lord. The Guangming dragon lord looked like a child, but he was an old man with gray hair. Whole body wasted and looked like he was about to die. These two people, who seemed to be countless years apart, were gathering together like old friends, chatting and reminiscing. They didn't care much about the content of the chat, so everyone was listening to them. Zhang Zizai seemed to hear them talking about a person called Underworld Demon. The demon realm of chaos was already chaotic and separatist. That character's general, Nether Demon, was recruiting people from all over the demon realm. Although they were very low-key, they had met with our Aoki Dragon clan several times. I feel that this matter must be dealt with. Although I am not sure whether the person has really returned, I still need to be on guard, King Mu Longzun said. In order to subjugate this person, our Supreme Dragon clan's vitality was seriously injured. I personally saw this person's soul perish, so I feel that the possibility of his return is unlikely. It should be that the underworld demon under him is still determined to return. Continue your delusion. This time, discuss with others and contact the other 4 Supreme Dragon clans to completely eliminate this evil spirit to avoid future troubles. I see that the other 4 Supreme Dragon clans don't seem to want to take care of it. They may have forgotten who they were most afraid of back then. The entire dragon sacrifice god realm almost gave up to them, haha. That group of people escaped. The 49 divine realms have never been peaceful. As the top divine realm, our dragon sacrifice divine realm rarely has real opponents. After so many years, I am afraid that we have lost the spirit of fighting. It's a very dangerous signal. If another person like that appears, it will definitely teach us a huge lesson, Guangming Longzun said. Zhang Zizai was a little curious after hearing this. Who was that person back then and who was this underworld demon? Where is the chaotic demonic realm? But he still wanted to listen, but the next 2 dragon masters walked away, probably looking for other old friends. Now he couldn't hear it even if he wanted to. Who is the Nether Demon? Zhang Zizai asked the Heavenly Dragon God King. It has nothing to do with you, so you should still care about the ancestor worship, the Heavenly Dragon God King said. In fact, he was too lazy to answer, because this matter was too far away from a junior like Zhang Zizai, and it was not something he could worry about at all. After that, every day, the absorption range of the Origin Dragon Cave would be reduced, and then new holy dragons would arrive. Next, Zhang Zizai saw the huge size of the holy dragons. There were more and more people around, and the Light Dragon clan was just one of them. The Light Dragon clan was considered to be a top-level one, but there were many of the same size. For example, the Red Flame Dragon clan, the Golden Palace Dragon clan, the Greenwood Dragon clan, the Skywater Dragon clan, the Mysterious Earth Dragon clan, the Purple Sky Dragon clan, the Blue Ice Dragon clan, the White Flame Dragon clan, the Wind Controlling Dragon clan. There are also some smaller ones, such as the Blizzard Dragon clan. There are dozens of clans, such as the 10,000 Flowers Dragon clan, but they basically all have dragon lords in their clans. Although they are all dragon lords, there are some differences in strength. At this time, there are crowds of people outside the Origin Dragon Cave. The elites of the Holy Dragon clan are now all gathered here. They communicate and greet each other, but these are basically the affairs of the elders. Zhang Zizai is with them, basically staying and obeying their orders. Finally, that day came, the Origin Dragon Cave had shrunk to a very small range, and we could get closer. I am not in good condition, I wrote so late, good night. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1042. The swallowing range of the bottomless pit of the Origin Dragon Cave can be seen with the naked eye. Within that range, it is completely restricted area of life. Birds passing by will disappear in an instant and be swallowed into the bottomless pit. It can also be seen today that this range has decreased over time. When the scope was reduced, the strong men from all sides of the Holy Dragon clan were relatively silent and serious. The less range, the closer they come. Until the end, Zhang Zizai could see the bottomless pit in the ground. It was a huge cave filled with rotating black mist, like the mouth of the earth, and the eyes of the earth. Anyway, he couldn't go that way. Look more, otherwise it will be like your soul will be swallowed up. It is said that during the Centenary Festival, the Origin Dragon Cave will not shrink to its current scope, at least 10 miles away. How can we see clearly when the 1,000-year-old phenomenon appears? Now, they are almost standing on the edge of this bottomless pit. The Holy Dragon Celestial clan is scattered around the Origin Dragon Cave. Basically, a camp even prefers the same style of clothes. For example, the Bright Dragon clan is here. Basically all white. It is said that the Holy Dragon Celestial clan is strong because of its large number of people, but its weak point is that its bloodlines are scattered and there are no top experts and geniuses, so it is weaker. The big and small clans add up to a total of more than 40, but the small clans are not too small. Basically, 2 or 3 together are almost the same as a Bright Dragon clan. Now everyone is staring at the Origin Dragon Cave. Even if it feels uncomfortable, they are curious after all. At this moment, the swallowing range of the Origin Dragon Cave has completely disappeared. In other words, they can go directly to the edge of the Origin Dragon Cave. Only during the Millennium Festival, it is possible to get so close to the Origin Dragon Cave. The people standing in front of him were all God Kings, so Zhang Zizai was not too close at this position. However, he could also see the black mist below. Next, the solemn ancestor worship ceremony officially begins. Those in front have been here many times and have worshipped their ancestors many times. As for the ceremony and process, Zhang Zizai and others, who are here for the first time, can just follow. In fact, it is nothing more than kneeling down, chanting, and announcing to the Origin Dragon Cave. It is similar to the emperor worshipping ancestors in the mortal world, except that there is no pig head. The atmosphere was so serious that even breathing seemed sinful. Zhang Zizai and the others basically did as they were told. The ancestor worship ceremony lasted for half an hour. At the end, there was another process, that is, all the disciples of the Holy Dragon Celestial clan who came had to shed their blood in the Origin Dragon Cave one by one. This process is called bloodline return. Is an item that has been passed down from ancestors to this day and can only be found in the Millennium Festival. As for why he did this, Zhang Zizai didn't ask much. It wasn't a big deal anyway, so he just did as he was told and let the bloodline return to its roots, which was equivalent to the bloodline born from the Origin Dragon Cave and finally returned to it. Lu Dingxing and Xuanhuan didn't need it, because they were not dragon totems, so the elders naturally wouldn't let them bleed into it. They just followed along with the ancestor worship ceremony. After the bloodline was restored, the ancestor worship ceremony finally ended. Zhang Zizai could clearly see that after the process was over, everyone seemed to relax a little, including the Bright Dragon Lord and the others, who also started talking and laughing. Seeing that everyone was talking relaxedly, Zhang Zizai asked Bai Mu, "What's next? When will the 1,000-year elephant appear?" "Are you anxious?" Chu Xiu said calmly. "I didn't ask you," Zhang Zizai said. In fact, he is indeed focused on cultivation and doesn't know much about the Millennium Festival. Although he is in the Tianlong Palace, it is usually not easy to find the Tianlong God King. Bai Mudang didn't see them bickering. He said, "The 1,000-year-old phenomenon usually appears after 3 to 5 days, and the time varies. During the period after ancestor worship, it is said that the predecessors in the ancient era basically waiting silently, but something changed later. After all, the various tribes of the Holy Dragon Celestial clan finally gathered together, so there was a tradition of martial arts competition. Basically, young people competed, various tribes communicated with each other, and the elders watched the battle, waiting for the 1,000-year event together. At the same time, this process is equivalent to showing the results of countless generations of our Supreme Dragon clan to the Origin Dragon Cave. Only young people spar. Usually the ancient gods come first, and the main body is still in the realm of god kings. They are the backbone of the youth. Sometimes if the 1000-year event does not appear, the god kings who are willing to fight will also fight on this occasion. After all, the situation of the Holy Dragon Celestial clan is complicated, and there are disputes between various clans. Naturally, we all want to win glory for our clan. After competing for so many years, it is actually the need for the development of the Holy Dragon Celestial clan by Mudeo. He spoke in an orderly manner, because he knew that Zhang Zizai came from the small god realm and had no sense of belonging to the Bright Dragon clan. Only those who had a sense of belonging knew how fierce the overt and covert struggles between the various tribes were. The elders also used this to urge them. They practice seriously, otherwise they will easily make a fool of themselves in all competitions and discussions. Therefore, all clans attach great importance to the competition and competition between dragons during ancestor worship. The Supreme Dragon clan lives by fighting, which is the vitality of the race. The defeated will naturally suffer humiliation. There are big clans and small clans among the Holy Dragon clan, and the Light Dragon clan is a big clan. But the big clan and small clan are not certain. Some small clans can become big clans after development and growth because of the emergence of strong people and the prosperity of population. If the big clan declines, it will become a small clan, or even be annexed in the end. The resources occupied by the big clan and the small clan are completely different. For example, the number of ancestor worship quotas for the big clan is basically 2 or 3 times that of the small clan. And the number of ancestor worship quotas is likely to be related to the development of the clan in the next 100 years, especially the Millennium Festival, which will affect the development of the clan for 1,000 years. The seemingly unimportant competition is actually an opportunity for each clan to show its strength. Some small clans may have waited for a long time for today, just for the opportunity to show and become famous. The difference in status is the key to the struggle of each clan. At this time, in front of the Origin Dragon Cave, the clans of the Holy Dragon clan stood around a circle, and the elders began to talk and laugh with each other. The scene was actually quite relaxed. The content of the conversation was nothing more than which heroes had emerged in each tribe over the past 1,000 years and who had become god kings within 1,000 years. Among the big tribes, the Light Dragon tribe was not considered the top one. The dragon lords of each tribe were the protagonists at this time, but they did not say much. After all, they had lived for so many years and had seen everything. The younger generation can practice. I see that each tribe has brought some ancient gods this time. These children were born not long ago and can come to worship their ancestors. They should all have outstanding qualities. We should let them perform well.